Now, remember, I said under the radar. So I'm not talking about Oklahoma and Bama. I am not talking about Texas and Georgia this week. I'm not talking about Notre Dame and Pitt. I'm talking about matchups that you probably aren't thinking about. This has been a theme in the last couple of weeks here on the show that you're probably not having at the top of your mind or talking about with your friends a whole heck of a lot, that after listening to this show, if you want to sound really smart, go into a conversation with a friend or family member and say, hey, got to watch out for these matchups. They've got playoff implications. Let me start with Virginia traveling to Duke. You know who's favored in this game, according to our friends at FanDuel? Duke. Yeah. Duke's not ranked, nor should they be. They lost last week. They're coming back home, but guess what? Their playoff fate is in their own hands. You might not like it, but that's the auto bids world that we have constructed here in college football. Am I a fan of auto bids? Not really. This is a perfect example as to why, because Duke lost to UConn last week on the road, and it doesn't really matter because they're 4-1 in ACC play. And if Duke beats Virginia, they can knock the Cavaliers all but out of the playoff and ACC championship picture, which is the only way the ACC team or an ACC team other than maybe Georgia Tech, if they're able to beat Georgia later this year, that's the only way you're getting into the playoff from this conference. But somebody has to, just like the group of five, somebody has to get in. So Virginia at Duke, a battle of one-loss ACC teams, don't overlook that game. Here's another one. Let's go to the Big 12 for two matchups that you have to know about, starting with TCU at BYU. Again, the Cougars, like the Blue Devils, are coming back home. They are playing a good team, not a great team, but a good team, and they have to win or else you're going to have serious playoff issues. Now, BYU's wouldn't be as dire as the loser of Virginia Duke. The loser of Virginia Duke is just out. They're done. The conversation is not going to continue as far as the conference title and playoff is concerned. BYU is a fascinating one because, as Jake Hatch of Locked On Cougars said on the show not long ago, a week or two ago, all the shows kind of blend together for me at this point. If BYU and Utah both wind up at 10-2 because of some sick, twisted debacle of a tiebreaker scenario, Utah would get into the Big 12 championship game over BYU, even though the Cougars won the head-to-head. Makes absolutely, positively no sense. Head-to-head should be the first tiebreaker forever and always. This is not rocket science. Apparently it is. So BYU has to avoid a tricky spot. Good team, but they're at home. They know they've got to win, but if they lose, boy, they certainly can't lose one more. Or they're going to have to hope that Utah loses, or they will suddenly not have a playoff fate that feels like it's 100% in their own control. Right now it is 11 wins and you are in. That's where BYU is at. They've got 3 games. If the Cougars win those games in the regular season, regardless of whether they are the Big 12 champs or not, I believe they will be in the college football playoff, and I will advocate for as much here on the show. But TCU, who lost to Iowa State last week, somebody's getting a bounce back. Games in Provo should be fun. Speaking of the Big 12, a team that just inexplicably, in my view, was dropped out of the top 25. I don't really know why. I know they got beat badly by Utah, who we all know is a good team, but Cincinnati's resume still holds up pretty well, and they're inside my top 20. Because the Bearcats have just 2 losses, one of them by 3 points to a Nebraska team who, when they had Dylan Raiola, was good. And by the way, Nebraska went on the road and won at UCLA last week, and we have seen time and again how hard it is to win on the road in conference play. So for Cincinnati and Arizona, the Wildcats and the Bearcats, 2 different types of cats matching up in this one, Cincinnati still has just 1 Big 12 loss. You got to separate. You can't just look at the overall record. You got to look at the conference record. And so Cincinnati plays an Arizona team that is having a much needed resurgence under Brent Brennan in his second year. And Arizona quietly knocked off Kansas 24-20 last week and quietly has gotten themselves into bowl eligibility. And Cincinnati is playing for its playoff life because if you lose, well, suddenly you'd have the same number of Big 12 losses as Utah. Oh, wait, the head-to-head doesn't matter. What do you know? So we'll see. I don't even know what those metrics are. Don't want to look. But again, That's one that you need to just at least have an eye or have a mindset to just keep on your phone on a side screen, or just check the score every now and then, because that's one in a couple weeks that if Arizona wins, suddenly the Big 12 title race condenses, but it remains very open with Cincinnati having just the one loss. And finally, last but certainly not least, on my under the radar playoff impact games for this week, South Florida travels to Navy. Oh my, what a game this could be. So both teams have one loss in the American. There are several teams that have just one loss in the American Conference, and these are two of them. You've got Tulane in that race as well, with North Texas and, also quietly, East Carolina. So Navy traveling to South Florida this week represents an opportunity for South Florida to pick up a quality Group of 5 win. It also represents an opportunity to knock yourself directly out of the playoff picture. Navy, I do not believe, after Notre Dame beat them soundly, shall we say. I mean, I suppose maybe the midshipmen could. They don't have a Power 4 win. They lost to North Texas by 2 touchdowns. They lost to Notre Dame by 39 on the road. Okay, that can be forgiven. But if they were to beat South Florida and win at Memphis and then win the Army-Navy game on December 13th, maybe it would have an outside shot of building a G5 playoff resume. But I don't trust Navy's defense. They have not been what they usually are. The offense has been good, but that's slowing down as we've moved into some colder months, which is weird. You'd think they'd keep that up with the rushing attack, but they're averaging 13.5 points per game in their last 2 games, both losses. They play South Florida at home, and I think I might have said that backwards earlier in the show. This game is being played at Navy, not at South Florida. But the Bulls have to have this one. Every one of these teams in the Group of 5 playoff resume hunt are in that mode of every game has to be a win and one loss and you're done. San Diego State learned this last week. San Diego State went on the road, got beat soundly by Hawaii. You're still having a good year. But any sort of playoff discussion, you're done. And the Mountain West just doesn't have the same lineup of Power 4 wins. It's a good league, as always. It does not have the same lineup of Power 4 wins that we have seen in the past, or at least quality outcomes. Like Boise State last year went on the road to Oregon, who was number 1 for most of the year, and only lost by 3 points on a field goal at the buzzer. And that was... Buzzer sounds more basketball, doesn't it? A game-winning field goal. That was a real feather in Boise State's cap that kept them at the top of the G5 resume playoff discussion. Well, there isn't one of those games on any of these particular schedules. So someone's playoff hopes will get eliminated this week between Virginia and Duke, between Navy and South Florida, and then if BYU were to lose or Cincinnati were to lose, you would not see them in the college football playoff. There'd be a 0% chance. All right, I'll give you 0.5%, but there are too many other teams in the race. So those are my under-the-radar games. Virginia at Duke, TCU at BYU, Arizona at Cincinnati, South Florida at Navy. Your under-the-radar playoff implication games for the week. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.